What's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Chris Featherstone here for yet another episode of UnSKripted. I am here with former WWE wrestler, without further ado, Mario Mancini. How are you tonight?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, man. So what are you up to nowadays? You got your own wrestling promotion, right?
Well, yeah. Well, Paul Roma. It's Paul Roma, Paul Perez, and Big Steve Tracy. We have Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling in East Haven, Connecticut. Needless to say that Roma's the head instructor. He's also the booker and the storyline maker.
Nice.
Yeah, we have that going. We also have our own podcast now. We're 3 episodes in.
Oh, what's it called?
Hey Roma.
Hey Roma.
Hey nice. Roma.
Very nice. So what's the subject matter?
Everything. Politics. What we really focus on is our military.
Okay.
We have a segment on there called Where in the World Is, and we have military veterans come on. The ones specifically that were in the war that had a camaraderie with their fellow soldiers, and after the war was over, they just lost each other. They can't find each other. So through social media, we ask people, if you heard of this name, or in say they're in Pennsylvania, and can you let us know if they're alive or not, or there's so and so's trying to get a hold of them. So we of course we talk about wrestling, and we eviscerated John Cena the last show. And
what'd y'all say about John Cena?
Hey, listen, man. Listen, you're my brother, and you come up to me and go, Mario, man, I hit it bad, man. I hit bad skids, And you say, I said, Doc, what happened? Well, I got audited for 2020, and for 2021, they're telling me I owe them $65,000. I'm like, man, that's rough, boy. If you don't pay that in a year, it'll be $165,000. Man, I'm stressed out, and we put our heads together and see what we can do for you, because you've come across a misfortune. I'm your brother. I'm your friend. You know what I mean? And as John Cena said, it's not until the shit hits the fan where you find out who your friends really are. And I understand that in misfortunes that are unforeseeable. But defecating, an allegation of defecating on somebody's head isn't run into hard times, man. I'm sorry. And he just said, I love Vince McMahon. I'm going to stand by him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know, Howard Stern, he was on the Howard Stern show when he said this, and and Howard tried to tap dance around it, did a really good job with it too.
Hmm.
He's such a smart guy. He's like, you know, I have friends that I love, and you know, I support them if there's a problem, or, you know, but there's a line, you know, where if something happened, do I stay friends with this person or not? Or, I mean, he was really good about it, but Cena just came out, no, no, I'm standing by him, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, you know, it's like I said, you know, if you're still paying your rent, if you're still paying your mortgage, buying your groceries, paying your electric bill with WWE money, you're just gonna say, "Hey, man, I hope everything works out for him." Poor Vince,
Sure.
you know what I mean. So,
Sure. Yeah.
but you know, brother, the guys that got screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. When the zeros are a little bit more after the first number, it seems like it's a lot more gracious than when the zeros are less.
What?
So,
Yeah, I mean, listen, everybody knows in this world that I corroborated Rita Marie's story. Um, you know, it hit New York Magazine. I was on countless social media things, and I was on the, you know, the Nine Lives of Vince McMahon, and on Spike, and you know, the question posed to me never was, did he rape Rita Chatterton? The question posed to me is, did she communicate this to you in 1986?
hmm,
And I said, yeah, she did. She told two people, me and Andre. Well, Andre's dead. So guess who they came running after?
sure.
And I told the truth. And I'll say it now. I said it then. I'll say it now. I'll say it in the future. I didn't get a nickel out of that. God bless Rita, whatever happened with her, with the case, it's good for her. I've known her for 40 years, and she's slept with demons and had nightmares about them for the past 40 years. And I told her, I said, I hope you can rest peaceful now. You know, you got your justice. So, um, but in the interview in New York Magazine, I said, there's even worse stuff than that.
Hmm,
And then this comes out, and then I go on Cheap Heat, a podcast, Cheap Heat, I do monthly, and I go, guess what? There's worse stuff than that.
hmm,
And then Banfield got me on News Nation, and she's like, Mario, this is you quoted by saying this. She goes, what is it? I go, I'm not ended up in a court of law unless
hmm,
somebody comes forward.
yeah.
She goes, give me a hint. I said, no,
Yeah.
no. I'm not getting sued. There's no way that's happening, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of those things will be buried with a lot of people. As far as just over the past 40 years with Vince McMahon, you worked with Vince for about 7 years, right? From about 84
Yeah.
to 91.
Yeah. Just about
Hmm.
um a little over, oh yeah, a little over seven. Tony Altomar trained me. And he was tag team partners with Lil Albano back in the 60s. They were Sicilians.
Hmm.
And he worked for Titan Sports. So, which really got my foot in the door. But I guess if I was terrible, they would have told me not to come back. But I guess they liked the way I put guys over. So, you know, it was told to me in 1984 when I just turned 18. And I turned pro 6 weeks after I turned 18. Put about 5 years in, pay your dues, and you'll get a push. And I said, well, that's doable. I'll be 23 years old. That's doable. And the only push I got was to stretchers, you know. So I really didn't get
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
push.
Now, did you ever go into Vince's office and say, "Hey, 5 years up, I'm at year six now. What about this push that I was guaranteed?" Did you ever do that?
No, I went to Vince for a couple. Vince came to me one time. As you can imagine, I was young.
Sure.
And I wasn't that much of a ladies man in high school. So When I became a professional wrestler, I found a whole other world of fans. And one time I was by the steel barricades in the back of the dressing rooms in Brantford, Ontario,
Mm.
signing autographs and chilling with the ladies, and everybody was smiling and everything, and all of a sudden everybody's face just went straight.
Mm.
And I said, "Gee, how come everybody? What the?" And I looked over my shoulder, and it was Vince.
Ah.
He said, "You here to have a good time or to work?" And I go, "Well, Vince, I try to do both." And he goes, "I see you outside the dressing room again. I'm going to find you." I'm like, "Okay." And I went running into the dressing room and almost knocked over Tony Atlas when I slammed the door open.
Mm.
Other than that, I went up to him and I told him I wanted an action figure. And he said, "What's so special about your action figure?" I said, "My action figure comes with two paramedics, an ambulance, and a stretcher." And he actually liked it.
Mm.
Um, Another time I asked him if I can put the tool belt around me and put the red hat on and go out as Super Mario Mancini, and he said he didn't want to pay Nintendo.
Mm.
Other than that, I did Tuesday Night Titans with Roma
Yeah.
um, in Landover, Maryland. I did go to the office quite often, probably from like 84 to 86, because Tony Altomar was in there, and his belief always was hang around the office, you never know what's going to happen.
Mm.
I used to go there and I used to hang around with Tony and I used to hang around with Ed Cohen um, in the office and George Scott, and then George Scott got fired. Pat came in. The person I hounded the most about that was Chief Jay Strongbow,
Ah, okay.
who was my second father.
Mhm.
We became very close. I'll talk about him briefly because if I talk about him too much, I'll end up breaking down. There was a lot of love there, but I'd go, Chief. I paid my dues. I paid my dues. I'd always get on him, and sometimes I get on Pat Patterson and go, Pat. I've done everything everybody's ever asked me to do, and he'd give me the same line. I like you. The office likes you. Just be patient. I said, okay. And by the end of 91, the beginning of 92, all I remember is I was in Nashville, Tennessee. I worked with Honky Tonk, and then I was in Huntsville, Alabama, and I worked with Rick Rude, and I walked away and I said, I'm not coming back.
Mm.
I'm not, oh, sure. I go, I'm not coming back. And I went home, and a couple days after I went home, Terry Garvin had called my house, assuming to send me to a town. And I just told I was still living home. Um, I just told my mother I'm not home, and she says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Garvin, he's not home," and my phone never rang again. That was
Mm.
it.
Wow. So no, no one else picked you up because you were on a hiatus for nearly 15 years before you start wrestling again a few years back, right?
Well, this is my mistake and my regret because I have very close brothers in this business, and one of them's name is the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy, who traveled this whole country independently as a manager. The only manager I know of that got paid transportation and a booking fee to come to travel all over the country to manage, and he managed a lot of people I worked with, Bundy and the Samoans, Yokozuna. I mean, he was all over the place, and he always every now and then he'll get on me and he'll go, I'll never understand what's wrong with you, Mancini. You got out of the WWF and you could have trounced the independent circuit.
Hmm.
You would have been booked all over the place. And I said, listen, I had a bad attitude. My attitude was this: my first love in life, as far as sports goes, was baseball.
Okay.
I wanted to be a major league baseball player.
Hmm.
Pro wrestling was number two. Um, I was a little too slow to be a major league baseball player. I had a great bat, better than a lot, but my glove was mediocre. So um, I always had that baseball mentality. So when I got out of the WWF, you know, and you know, I felt like I was getting dropped down to the minors. You know what I
Okay.
was going? I
Yeah.
was, you're playing for the New York Yankees, and all of a sudden you're playing for the Mississippi Mudslingers, you know.
Sure, sure.
So, you know, and plus every now and then we'd get leased out, like to Muskie Salo.
Hmm.
You know, it would be me, SD, Iron Mike Sharp, you know, and we'd go to these independent shows. You know, the office would get a fee, of course, and then pay us off the fee. But when me and SD walked into a dressing room, you know, on an independent show, we felt the heat. You know, we felt the animosity. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
there were some guys that were would really nice, would come up to me and pick my brain, like, how is it to be there? You know, what's
Yeah.
it like? But most of the guys were like, oh, geez, here they come. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I didn't like the feel of that, and I don't know. I just felt like I was getting dropped down to the minor leagues. That I couldn't get that out of my brain. So I got a call from a promoter in 1999, and he's like, "I'd like to book you for the Westchester County Center." I said, "Well, how the hell did you get that? Vince is the only one that gets that place." He goes, "Don't worry about it. I got it." And I'd like you to work. And I said, well, I haven't worked in 7 years. I go, so it's not going to be too good. I go, my timing's off. I go, my wind's off. I go, it's just not going to be good at all.
Hmm.
I appreciate the offer, but I have to decline. And I said, just out of curiosity, who am I working with? And he said, Bundy. I said, when is it?
Hmm.
I'll be there. So I worked with Chris at that independent show that night, and he actually wanted to put me over. Um, he said, "Look, just move out of the way of that avalanche, and I'll take the bump and just cover me." I said, "I'm not doing that." He goes, "I have to pay you." We didn't call it the WWF; we called it New York.
Hmm.
So he goes, "I have to pay you back for what you did for me in New York." And I said, "That's not happening. Yeah, I'm doing the job." He goes, "Why do you have to be so hard headed, Mancini? Just move from the avalanche and just cover me." I said, "I'm not doing it."
Hmm.
I go, listen, Mighty Mouse doesn't go over on King Kong. That just doesn't happen. I said, take away the friendship.
Hmm.
Forget the friendship. Just look at the characters.
Hmm.
That's just not going to happen.
Hmm.
So he goes, all right, have it your way. And, you know, I took the avalanche that night, and he gave me that elbow, and that was it.
Hmm. Was there anybody in WWE like a bigger name that went to bat for you
Yes,
while you were there?
yes,
Who was
yes.
it?
Two people, two
Okay.
people. I was going back to the dressing room in Poughkeepsie. Of course, I did my jobs right. I had the mentality that even though I was doing jobs, I used to tell, you know, I'd look at Strongbow and say, listen, I'm going to be the best damn jobber in the company if
Hmm.
this is what I'm going to do. So no matter what you do in life, make sure you give 100%, right?
Sure.
So I made sure that the guy going over left the ring and was halfway down the aisle before I'd start getting up.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I just wanted to sell it the right way. So by the time I got out of the ring and started walking down the aisle, when I walked down the aisle, the other jobber was in the ring. He passed me, and coming was Don Morocco. So I'm by the door where Gorilla Monsoon is, and Morocco pushes me in the aisle, and he goes, "Push me back." So I pushed him back, and he pushed me again. He goes, push me back. And he pushed me again. He goes, push me again. And then Monsoon opened up the door and said, Mancini, get your ass in here. So I ran when Gino said that. And when Monster came back downstairs after his match, I said, Monster, what was that all about? He goes, kid, right place at the right time. You
Hmm.
just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I You never know. I said, thank you so much, man. The
Hmm.
second one was huge. So no one did more TV matches with Ted DiBiase than me. I don't know what it was with those guys if they had amnesia, but it seemed like I must have worked with him at least 6 times.
Hmm.
So every time we looked up at the board, it said DiBiase v Mancini. So finally, I'm behind Ted. He's looking at the board, and Pat and Strongbow are there. And he goes, I got Mancini again. And Chief goes, yeah. He goes, people are going to think these are repeats. And and Patterson goes, no, they're not going to think that. He goes, why don't we just run an angle? And my eyes popped out of my head, and I went, oh my God.
Mm,
And Pat just walked away.
mm,
And I got to tell you, Chris, it was pretty close because Strongbow was getting creative.
mm,
So it was like, all right, Mancini, Ted's going to hold out this wad of money. And he's going to say, you'll never make this much money in your lifetime. He goes, snatch the money and leave the ring and start running around the outside of the ring. And Michael catch you on the other side. May he rest in peace. He just passed away, Virgil.
mhm.
He goes, Virgil will meet you on the other side. So I snatched the money out of his hand. I'm running around the ring with it in my hand, you know. And Virgil caught me, and I took the bump outside. And I made sure that the money was in my right hand. So when I dropped it near the ring apron instead of the steel ring. The
Sure.
fans would reach out and try to grab it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the next time I worked with Ted, Strongbow goes, okay, now, Ted, hold the belt in front of Mancini. Say, look at this thing. This belt is worth more than your entire life. He goes, Mario, take both your hands and just kick him up, and the belt will go flying in the air. He goes, when Ted goes to grab the belt, just clock him.
Mhm,
You know, it was just coming up with stupid little things.
mm,
And that's when Ted said, "Well, you know, why don't we just run an angle?" And I went, "Oh my God!"
yeah.
And it went on deaf ears, and Pat just puffed on his cigarette and walked away.
Mm. Now, with the allegations of Vince McMahon, you said that there's more where that came from. Hearing this come out recently, the way that it came out, working there for 7 years, did it really surprise you,
N- n-
or no?
No, not at all.
Mm,
Not at all. Not at all. I will tell you the same thing I said on Cheap Heat. He is a sadistic sociopath.
mm,
He always was. But the thing about him, though, is he's the Pied Piper. You know what I mean? But he had good. Listen, the reason why wrestling sucks today is because they don't have those people. You got to remember something, Chris. This is your production meeting. This is your production meeting. This is your guys making the storylines for the next coming year.
yeah.
So you're a fly on the wall, and you're looking at this conference table. There's Vince McMahon, Howard Finkel, Gorilla Monsoon, Arnold Skolin, Chief Jay Strongbow, Pat Patterson. These were these were the brains.
Mm,
You know, Howard Finkel was brilliant. You know, they're sitting around going, I don't know what to name this thing. I'm throwing all names around and I can't. Does anybody have an idea? Brawl Fest, Wrestle It. Well, anybody have an idea? Finkel turns around and goes, Beatlemania, WrestleMania. Finkel.
mm,
You know, these were kind of brains
mhm,
that were there, and these were the production guys doing this. So you know, Vince had great ideas, but and obviously he revolutionized the wrestling business. I mean, he turned the whole thing around. He made it mainstream. But the problem is he didn't have a limit. He didn't know where to draw the line.
mm,
You know what I mean? The thong, kiss my ass. You have that Bruce Pritchard story going around YouTube where Stephanie was pregnant and Vince goes, "Hey, I got an idea. How about if I'm the father?" You know what I mean?
mhm,
He didn't know where to draw the line,
mhm.
and he didn't know where to draw the line in life. Listen, I said it a million times. I'll say it again. It's your ball, and nobody gets to play with it. And you make the rules, and it's closed shop. It's tight. I mean, it's tight. It's sealed. You can't get in. Then you decide to go public. Well, it's really not your ball anymore, and you have people spending their money. You might have somebody to answer to.
Yeah.
And then you go into $1 billion merger, you know what I mean, where you actually have a partner now. It's not your ball, you're sharing your ball now. It's not a private company anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a family run company anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? You think you would change with the times, but he didn't. He's just listen. It was the wild, wild west, man. If you were in a, if, and not you, not me, I never used them. If I used them, I would say I did, because I have no problem saying I took steroids. So you know what? If I used them, I'd say I did. I didn't. I didn't. But if you were in a bar and there was a very attractive woman there who had morals and values, and you hit on her and she said no, and you said, at least let me buy you a drink. Okay, you slip an H bomb in there, a Halcyon. She drinks it. The next morning, she's waking up in your bed, not knowing what the hell went on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get a rookie in the dressing room, and he picks up a Coke and drinks it, and he walks away to talk to some of the boys. He comes back and he drinks it. He's out cold. They shave half his head, half his mustache, half of his whole body. You know, the British Bulldogs would. It was Fuji would take a dump in your bag just for a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've heard those
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like it was kind of nuts. It was crazy. It
Mm.
really was.
Yeah. So it was just a band of misfits, essentially, backstage. Did you feel left out there, or did you engage in any of the activity with them?
I see the thing with me is, and to this day, I tried when I was 18. Lord knows I tried. It must be an enzyme or something I'm allergic to. But for the one thing, I don't drink. I don't consume alcohol at all. So I remember being in Columbus, Ohio, connected to a ground round. The Red Roof Inn was connected to a ground round, and I was sitting there with Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And Bret orders a beer, Neidhart orders a Jack Daniels, and I order a Diet Coke. Then the second round came. They ordered the same thing. I ordered a Diet Coke, and Neidhart looks at me and goes, "Mancini, don't you drink?" And I went, "No." He goes, "Yeah, you never would have made it in the NFL." He's
Wow.
um I went out um, a few times when we would all go to one place
Mm-hmm.
and everything, but really, I was minor league with that kind of stuff. I really, I number one, I'm the last of six kids of a very tight knit Italian family. My mother and father were married for 65 years,
Wow.
and when I was 15 years old. My father was reading the newspaper and he said, "Lenny, come here." And I went behind his chair and he was reading the paper. He goes, "What am I reading?" I go, "You're reading the newspaper, Dad." He goes, "No, no, no. What am I reading in the newspaper?" I go, "The police blotter." He goes, "Yeah, the people who got arrested." He goes, "Let me tell you something. If I ever see my last name in there, I'll kill you because I gave you that name. You will have to face me if I ever see my name in that police blotter." Stuff like that burned in your brain.
Sure.
They
Sure.
burned, and I just wanted them to be proud of me, even though my father at time in tears would watch my matches on TV because they were delayed tape.
Hmm.
And let me tell you something, those matches really hurt that guy.
Yeah.
But
Now, what type of work did you do? I'm sure that it was more supplemental income as far as pay for enhancement talent. What work were you doing during that time, and how was the pay for enhancement talent at that time?
what during 1980, between 1984 and 1988, I didn't I didn't have a job. I just wrestled.
Mm-hmm.
Things started slowing down in 88. Um, I took a job at the age of 22 as an area manager for a security company, which they understood that possibly 9 to 12 days out of the month I might be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they'd say, as long as you got your beeper with you, we're good. So I did that, and then when I got out, when I got out. I tooled around for a couple of years, and then I went to college. And in the middle of going to college, I ended up landing a job in a law firm, and kind of pushing paper. And then I figured, what the hell?
Mm,
After my bachelor's degree, I might as well go to law school.
mm,
So that was no easy task. I took a little too many bumps, man.
yeah,
That was no easy task, you know?
yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I had a blast between like 84 and 88. Well, you got to remember something. I broke in 6 weeks after I was 18. So I was going home. I was living home. I had no rent or anything like that. It was an
mm,
Italian family. They don't take rent from you.
mhm.
So, I was able to really get the experience.
So do they pay you by the match? Do they pay you by the week or what?
Oh no, no, paid. I was paid by the match, and I
Okay.
got paid anywhere from 250 to 550 a match.
Okay. And you wrestled how many matches in a week's time?
Uh, well, I like to do like a month, probably 15, 16 times out of a month.
Okay. So you made this decent earning for an enhancement guy at 18 years old. I mean, it's not really a lot to complain about there for sure.
Well,
Yeah. I got a few minutes left. I do want to give you. So I want to do some name association. All right. So,
oh, I love that.
yeah. So I call this "Let's Be Honest." So I'm going to give you
Oh,
some
that's all you
names.
get from me, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got names written down. I got the first one. I do want to say this one isn't written down yet, but Hulk Hogan. Just a short answer. Hulk Hogan. Let's go. How you feel? Let's be honest.
You know what? I like Terry. I like Terry. For a guy who's Babe Ruth, he got screwed a lot. Personally in life, he's had some tragedies that he had no control over. Being his son, and it's his son, and he's gonna love his son, but um, his divorce cost him a ton of money. He took all those bumps, has all those injuries just to have to build his life all over again. He was always kind to me. He always took the time to talk to me. If I asked him for anything, he said yes. I just like Hulk. He's just a good guy.
Wonderful. So these are all names that you've competed against. Brutus Beefcake.
Eddie's a jerk. He's my jerk though. I love Eddie, but man, he's back then he's a piece of work, man. Now we hug each other like two grandpas, but Eddie, I like Eddie.
What made him a jerk?
He just, this is what I say. Guys like Tito Santana, Tony Atlas, Don Morocco, guys like that are talking to you on the same level.
Sure.
And then there were just guys that made you feel like a jobber.
Mm, gotcha.
Yeah.
Kind of, just kind of feeling like they were above you, type of
Yeah.
thing. Gotcha.
Yeah.
How about this person, Ted DiBiase?
I love Ted I have love for Ted in my heart. That's how much I love Ted DiBiase. He was so late to a wrestling convention I was at, and he was just blasting by my table. And I said, I know you're not walking by me like that. And as much as of a rush he was in, he looked over and he saw it was me and he dropped his stuff
Mm,
immediately.
mm.
I just love Ted. God bless Ted. I just love him to death.
Speak,
Excellent wrestler.
Speaking of people who felt above, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. So did Virgil feel like he was grateful for his opportunity, or was he a little bit, kind of pompous?
Nope, never. It's
Okay,
funny
good.
you say that because I would sit next to him in the dressing room and I'd say, Mike, I'm really happy for you. I really am. But
Mhm.
just don't forget, not too long ago, you were me.
Mm,
And he'd just start laughing and put his arm around me and go, brother, I never forget that,
mm. Yeah,
So,
yeah. Harley Race.
Harley, what a privilege, an honor and privilege to work with Harley Race. A guy that will look at you and go, son, I know how this territory is, but I'm going to tell you something. I got to beat somebody. I don't beat nobody. I have to beat somebody. So you're going to have stuff to do in there. And unfortunately, Harley Race is the only TV match I ever screwed up. I
Also,
screwed it up. I did. I screwed it up so bad. And he just grabbed me and said, "Sorry, you missed your spot, kid."
oh,
I got inducted in the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2014. Harley Race was in that class. He was in a wheelchair at that time,
mm,
and I paid tribute to him.
yeah,
Sometimes when I look back at my career, I cannot believe I was in the same ring with Harley Race. I cannot believe I was in the same ring with Terry Funk. I cannot believe I was in the same ring with Don Morocco.
sure.
Sometimes it blows my mind.
Yeah. What spot was it? You remember?
Yeah, he said, "What do you like to do?" I said, reverse flying body press off the second rope." He
Mm,
goes, "I'll give you a 2 count on it."
mm,
So he gave me that turnbuckle, and I went up. I've done it 1,000 times, 1,000 times. I went up to jump up on the second rope, and instead of the balls of my feet going on the second rope, my toes caught it, and my feet went straight down. And
oh,
I
oh,
still tried to get the leap off, and it was like ground level.
yeesh.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I missed it.
Randy Savage.
Randy was appreciative. Randy, when he covered you, he was like, "Thank you, brother." And he'd thank you in the dressing room. Consummate professional, perfectionist, um, not offensive, nice guy, stiff.
Hmm. Was there any tension in the backstage with him and Hogan?
I didn't see any. Randy always had his own dressing room with Elizabeth
Okay.
because he'd lock her in there.
Yeah.
So he would come out with the boys, but it would normally to just go to the bathroom or look in the mirror or something. He really didn't do a lot of commiserating.
How was Elizabeth's demeanor at that time being locked in a locker room?
She just, I don't know. He would get his spot. She'd go out there with him. They'd come back. They'd go back in the room.
Wow. Hmm. Bret Hart.
The best wrestling royalty.
Hmm.
He is wrestling. Bret Hart is the foremost authority on professional wrestling. Um, in my mind and in my heart, he is the greatest wrestler that ever lived and ever will be. And that has nothing to do with his gimmick. I am not reciting his gimmick. I honestly believe that. I had an opportunity to work a house show with Bret Hart. Um, that man, I locked up with that man, and he said, "Hammerlock." And I put him in a hammerlock, and he said, "Don't let go." And he took me all over that ring in a hammerlock, everywhere in a hammerlock. I got back from the match, and I had my elbows on my knees, and I was looking at the floor, and I saw 2 feet come in front of me, and I looked up, and it was Strongbow. And he goes, "What's wrong with you, Mr. Man?" Always called me Mr. Mancini. He goes, "What's wrong with you, Mr. Mancini?" I said, "I don't know how to work. I'm terrible." He made me look like a fool out there. I go, I have no idea how to work. I don't know how to work.
Hmm.
He goes, "You wouldn't be here if you didn't know how to work." I said, I just never experienced anything like that before in my life. And not only that, Bret Hart is a wrestler. Bret Hart loves the wrestling business. Bret Hart cares about the wrestling business. Bret Hart was predetermined in his mother's womb. That's enough I'll say about that because we'll definitely go over time
Hmm.
because Bret Hart is just he's just everything.
Fantastic. A few more for you. Bob Orton.
Bob's a good guy. I got to know Bob a little better later in life, working for Brian Costello in Indiana for the IAW.
Mhm.
Bob was a very quiet guy. He hung with his clique. Morocco, Adrian Adonis, Piper. Um, but great worker, light, never hurt anybody. Gentleman, nice guy. And later in life, in 2015 and 16, 17, 18, working for Costello in Indiana, Brian Costello. He booked Bob there every show, and we actually had an opportunity to sit down and talk with him, laugh with him, tell war stories. Nice guy.
Yeah, awesome. Haku.
The toughest man in the history of professional wrestling. um, the funny part is I just made a comment on social media because they had a Haku thing on there and he was busting a gut. He's laughing so hard. And you know what? I made a comment and said, hey guys, believe it or not, 95% of the time, that's the way Haku was.
Uh,
There are these legendary stories about Haku, and they're true,
yeah.
but that's if you make him mad.
Yeah.
I mean, 95% of the time, he had a smile on his face. He was always happy, always cheerful. Um, always cracking jokes. He's just a nice guy. He taught me a lesson one night. I was a little extra tired one night, and I worked a house show with him. And I guess I locked up like a wet noodle, and he put me against the ropes, and he buried his hand into my midsection hard, and I went, "Whoa."
Mm.
And he got me in a headlock and took me down, and he said, "Are you up now, brother?" I said, "Yeah, I'm awake. Let's go." So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the spot that you're talking about was his first time ever he saw the Shockmaster segment, and he saw the Shockmaster fall through the wall
Yeah,
and
that's
trip.
right. That's
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and he
Correct,
belly
correct, correct.
laughed. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was hilarious. It was
That's
hilarious.
the way he was most of the time, though.
Really?
That's the
Huh.
way he was. Yeah,
Yeah.
we see him at conventions. He's still the same way. He's always
Huh.
laughing.
Very jovial,
Yes.
which is different than people know that he's tough. A lot of people say that he's among the toughest, or the toughest. But not a lot of people know him for just straight belly laughing. And to
Exactly.
see that segment, see that clip was hilarious to many people because they were like, "How
Yeah.
cool! This
Yeah.
is
Yes.
different." Yeah,
Haku.
yeah.
Yes. That's the way he always is.
So this is normal Haku for you. So
Yeah. Normal Haku for me. Yeah.
yeah. Lastly, the Undertaker.
I'm conflicted because I want to believe I was upset for a long time, but I want to believe that Mark didn't know I was at the big event. I want to believe that. That's the only thing that's going to keep me sane is that I want to believe that he didn't know that Fetterman didn't tell him I was there. Very boring story. Um, I was in the dressing room. I looked up the board and it said Undertaker v Mancini. It was November 19th, 1990, a couple days before the Survivor Series. And I said, Chief, who's the Undertaker? He goes, the guy over there in the black. I said, he's huge. So I went up to him and I said, hey, I'm Mario Mancini. I'm working with you. And he said, Mark, nice to meet you. I said, what's your finish? I don't think he liked this answer. He goes, the tombstone. I go, what's the tombstone? He goes, oh, it's a reverse pile driver. And I said, oh, Don Morocco did that all the time. I took those all the time, right? I don't think he liked that. Um, and he goes, listen, I'm going to walk the top rope. And I looked up at his 6'10" face and I said, you are going to walk the top rope. He got, He said, look, Mario, if your elbow collapses, I'm screwed. I'm going to fall right off the top rope.
Mm.
And that's when Strongbow came over and he said, listen, there's a reason why I put you with him. He's been here for 6 years and he's one of the best that we have at this and you'll be fine. And Mark backed, he was like, oh, okay, okay. So I said, yeah, don't worry. My elbow will be locked. No sweat.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll clothesline you over the top, backwards over the top rope. And I've never done that. I walked away from that going, oh my God, I've never done that.
Mm.
So, Chris, this is your homework assignment. You're going to watch that match on YouTube. You're going to poke in Mario Mancini, and you're going to see The Undertaker's debut, and nobody catches it until I point it out. So now I'm sitting in the dressing room, and I go, how am I going to do this? Embarrassed to ask anybody because I'm like a veteran now, right? So I'm like embarrassed.
Mm.
So I'm like, how do I do this? I go, you know what? If the top rope is level with my waist, I'll go right over. So after he chokes me, nobody picks it up until I say it, and then they watch it again and said, I caught you. So after he chokes me, I push down the top rope.
Mm.
And I even take a glance behind me to make sure I'm not going to land on anything.
Well, I'm definitely going to watch that again and
Nobody catches
pay,
that. And then
pay
he
attention.
clotheslines me and I go right over I go
Yeah.
right over back like butter, like
Yeah.
butter. He thanked me after the match. It was really no big deal. People ask me, did you know he was gonna have a 30? No, I didn't know he was gonna listen, I was Big Bully Busick's
Mhm.
debut match too.
Mhm.
May he rest in peace. How far did he go? I didn't know Mark was gonna go 30 years. But all I wanted to do at the big event is to shake his hand, congratulate him on the Hall of Fame, 10 seconds, and say, I'm honored I was able to kick it off for you.
Mhm.
You know, what an honor.
Yeah. Hmm.
They never let me, they never let me back there.
Wow. Is there a reason why they told you that not to go back there or what?
You know, Scott Wilder's my promoter in he went there when he first showed up, and they said, okay, wait right here. And then the line started forming and they said, would you mind coming back in 3 hours? And knowing how conventions are, of course, we're respectful. And we go, of course, we'll come back in 3 hours. So the line died down, and we went back. And I'm standing there, and Mark is in there, head down, mind you. I'm standing there and standing there and standing there, and finally, a Fetterman official came over and said, "Look, there's just no time.
Mm.
Sorry."
Mm.
And I was I was hot for a long time, and then he got inducted in the Hall of Fame and my phone started blowing up because he told a story about a jobber he worked with his first night who he kicked the hell out of because the kid didn't know what he was doing. Was that you? Was that hell no, that wasn't me.
Mm.
My match went unscathed. It must have been the guy he worked with after me that night in Rochester. It wasn't me.
Mm.
So the only thing that upset me on his Hall of Fame speech is he had a really, really long speech about respect,
Mhm.
if you remember.
I remember it.
And then he mentioned his first night and he said jobber and he went, ooh, enhancement talent. I go, well, you just gave a huge speech about respect, but you just disrespected jobbers.
Mm.
Good job. You know what I mean? Listen, man, everybody had a dream. Everybody, not just them. I decided to be a pro wrestler when I was 14 years old in 1980. I was going to be the next Bruno Sammartino, but and I didn't know I was going to become the eclipse Frank Williams. I didn't know that
Mm.
at the time. So you know, we all had a dream, not just them. We
Sure.
all did. You know, we all have those. I have home movies when I was 11 years old, cutting promos to wrestle in Madison Square Garden.
Mm.
I mean, if I became a superstar and they did a dark side on me, they'd be showing that I had a dream when I was 11 years old,
Mhm.
you know? Um, I just didn't get the push. Well, Mancini, well, I'm sorry I didn't start lifting weights when I was 12. All right. So yeah, I had, as the fans would say, I had the pasty white skin, I had the porn stash, and I didn't look like Paul Roma.
Mm.
You know what I mean? But neither did Mick Foley.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I always say they can push whoever they wanted to push, however they wanted to push them. You just needed to be bloodborne. You needed to have either bloodborne with the politics,
Mhm.
you needed to be a freak, or you needed to be very friendly with Pat Patterson. And I wasn't about to do that.
Yeah.
So um, I was a jobber. Don't call me enhancement talent, man. I'm not a human Viagra.
Mm.
I'm a jobber. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
uh, um, we all had dreams. We all had them. It just didn't work out. I remember being on a plane coming home from Huntsville, Alabama, and I just kind of chuckled looking out the window and I go, well, that didn't work out the way I thought it was gonna.
Mm. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Mario. As we close up, a lot of people who became Hall of Famers owe their confidence to you, though. because people like you, people like Barry. I'm good friends with Barry Horowitz, and other people. SD Jones you mentioned as well. It takes the Mario Mancinis, the SD Jones, the Barry Horowitz for a Undertaker, a Ted DiBiase, etc., to get the confidence to get to the big match, the main event match. In order to do that, they have to go through the Mario Mancinis, because those are the skilled workers that'll make them look at the camera, look at the tape, and say, "Oh, well, it's not about really Mario's. It's about me. I need to figure out what I need to do, and what nuances I need to pick up, and what things I need to do better." So, I think I'm going to give you your flowers, while you're alive, and tell you that, if it wasn't for the Mario Mancinis of this world to go against the Undertaker, you wouldn't get a Shawn Michaels Undertaker, because it took the Undertaker to be confident against Mario Mancini early in his career in the WWE to get to that WrestleMania 25 spot. So you
Well,
are a part of it.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate, Howard really choked me up when he inducted me in the Hall of Fame. He said, "Listen, if you were a young rising star in the WWF, there's only one way to get to that stardom. You
Mm,
just had to make one stop, and that stop was in Manciniville.
mm,
And if you got through Manciniville, you knew you were going somewhere,
yeah,
So, and what I always tell people is, I can't draw you a house. I can't. I can build you one, though.
mm,
I can build you one.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to send you a video of Barry Horowitz and I. When it comes to Barry Horowitz, he was the most underrated, underused wrestler. Um, I think in that business, um, he was so much more than an enhancement talent. I gotta call Barry that because he doesn't like being called a jobber.
he doesn't. Yeah,
Uh, but he was much more than that, and Barry has such a good attitude because I was nowhere near as good as Barry Horowitz. He was so much more talented than me.
mm,
He was such a better wrestler than I was, and they really could have used that. And he was very talented individual, and I think that he lives his life great because he can walk around every day of his life knowing that 90% of the guys he put over couldn't out wrestle him on their best day.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Mario, it's been a pleasure, man. Let the listeners know where to find you.
Well, you can tap into Hey Roma on Fridays on YouTube. I'm a very welcoming guy. I'm not a star, you know. So if you friend request me on Facebook, I'm not a big Twitter guy, Instagram. You can check out the singing wrestler on TikTok. I've created that. You get a hold of me on TikTok or whatever. I accept everybody's friend request, unless it's obviously I can spot fake ones. But
Sure.
if I see you friend request me and you have Barry on your friends list or you have Tito Santana or somebody,
Mhm.
I'll accept your friend request. I'll know you're a fan or whatever. And most of the time they tap in and these fans get a kick out of it because they'll tap into me and what do you like in the Super Bowl, Mario? And everything. I answer everybody's questions. I'm just, listen, I am the lowest form on the wrestling food chain. I
Mm.
am, you know what I mean? So,
I'd rather say appetizer before the main.
appetizer,
Yes, yes,
appetizer.
yes,
I
indeed.
need to send you a video of Barry and I.
Yeah.
I
Hey,
think you'll thoroughly enjoy it.
I look forward to it, man.
Yeah,
Mario, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate talking with you tonight.
not a problem, man. Thank you.
All right, have a good night.